Welcome back, everyone. Today we are just traveling through New Mexico, the Land of Enchantment.
From mountain peaks to desert sands, underground caverns to rugged badlands, New Mexico is a land of contrast.
With alien intrigue, nuclear history, Native American culture, hot springs, and the vibrant art scene of Santa Fe, there's really something for everyone. Hi, I'm Celeste.
And I'm Terry. In this video, we'll take you on a 10-day road trip through New Mexico's top sites
And give you all the information you need to plan your own trip. Now, New Mexico might not be the first place you think of when you think of a road trip out west.
But New Mexico has a lot to offer. In fact, there are 5 national parks and 12 national monuments located in New Mexico.
Before we planned our trip, we had no idea that there were so many different national monuments and parks here. Before we jump into the specifics, it's interesting to compare New Mexico with its neighbor Arizona. While the two states share many similarities, they also have some stark differences.
New Mexico and Arizona are comparable in size, with New Mexico actually being just a bit larger. New Mexico spans over 121,000 square miles, while Arizona covers about 113,000 square miles. But where they really differ is in population. New Mexico is home to around 2 million residents, while Arizona has over 7 million.
And that's a huge contrast. In fact, a lot of it felt really empty when we were driving around. And we found out later that it's got one of the lowest population densities in the United States, with just 17.1 people per square mile, compared to Arizona's 62.9 people per square mile.
New Mexico's diverse terrain includes vast desert plains, rugged mountain ranges, and high-altitude plateaus. The state is home to the southern Rocky Mountains, the Chihuahuan Desert, and expansive grasslands, offering a stunning contrast of landscapes all within one state.
If anyone watching either lives in New Mexico or has visited there, let us know what your favorite spots are. We can see if we missed anything on our trip, and we can go back and check those out. We spent 10 days in New Mexico on this road trip. We could have easily added a little more time because there were some things that we missed and a few places that we could have stayed longer. We stayed primarily in hotels. The only exception was a Verbo that we rented in Santa Fe. We used Hilton Honors points for some of our stays, and be sure to check out our video that discusses how we got 1 million Hilton Honors points in just 17 months, because it really helps save money when you're on the road if you can use points for the more expensive places. Some of the places we visited on this road trip have separate, more in-depth videos. We did those for people that like to have more detail, so if you're into that, go check those out. We'll point them out along the way. So before we get into the road trip itself, we also want to talk a little bit about the food. New Mexico has its own unique twist on Mexican food.
That's right, it's quite different from what you may be used to, especially if you've had Mexican food in places like Southern California or Arizona, where they follow the Sonoran cuisine style.
And in Texas, you'll often find Tex-Mex, which is a whole different thing.
New Mexican cuisine is all about bold local ingredients like chili peppers, beans, and squash.
Speaking of chilies are kind of a big deal here. You can get them red or green, or if you can't decide, ask for the Christmas, and that'll give you both.
Many people have the misconception that chili peppers are of Spanish origin, when in fact, chili peppers have deep history amongst the Mesoamerican cultures like the Mayans and Aztecs long before European influence even arrived.
Right here you're looking at a classic dish called carne adobada. Similar to chili con carne, it's a New Mexican dish offering pork shoulder braised in a base made with an assortment of chilies. And you'll see this in a lot of the restaurants. They also often serve sopapillas with the meal.
Sopapillas are light, fluffy, fried dough that serve with honey.
Probably not too healthy, but delicious.
And absolutely delicious.
Well, we'll get started with the road trip. Our first stop was Albuquerque. This city sits at an elevation of about 5,300 feet, which is similar to Denver, and it's the largest city in New Mexico by population, spanning around 189 square miles.
Albuquerque has some unique attractions. One of our favorites was the Sandia Peak Tramway. This 2.7-mile, 15-minute ride takes you up to the top at 10,678 feet, where on a clear day you can see a staggering 11,000 square miles.
This was definitely our favorite stop. Once you've seen Albuquerque from above, head down to the Petroglyph National Monument, where you can explore 4 locations that span 17 miles along volcanic rock. The petroglyphs here date back to around 81,000 to about 1,400, and each one tells a unique story.
For an interesting taste of Albuquerque's history, make your way down to Old Town. Here you can soak up local history, pick up some souvenirs, and of course try some amazing New Mexican cuisine.
If you love science and history, the National Museum of Nuclear Science and History is something to stop and see. From exhibits on nuclear weaponry and the Manhattan Project to the fascinating history of nuclear medicine, there's lots to check out. We do have a video specifically on Albuquerque, and it should be showing up now. Our next stop was White Sands National Park, located about 224 miles south of Albuquerque. I was having tons of trouble saying Albuquerque. It took me about 10 minutes to get that out, and we were just cracking up. So let's try it again. Our next stop was White Sands National Park, located about 224 miles south of Albuquerque, roughly a 3.5-hour drive. If you want to do something fun along the way, stop and see the world's largest pistachio.
While you're at McGinn's, you can stock up on some interesting snacks, do a little wine tasting, and have some of their famous pistachio ice cream.
White Sands National Park covers approximately 145,762 acres, or about 227 square miles.
The sand dunes were formed from the erosion of gypsum in the surrounding mountains. The gypsum dissolves in runoff, settle in the Tularosa Basin, and eventually crystallize into the white sands we see today. What's amazing is that the dunes are constantly shifting, moving several feet every year due to the wind.
This is the largest gypsum sand dune in the entire world. Pretty incredible. White Sands is a top site in New Mexico, and we have another video specifically on visiting White Sands. It should be showing up now. We stayed in Alamogordo overnight and then headed to Carlsbad the next morning via the Lincoln National Forest.
The Lincoln National Forest covers about 1.1 million acres, and it spans from deserts and grasslands to lush pine and fir forest, with elevations ranging from 4,000 to 11,500 feet.
On the way to Tunnel Vista, we were increasing in altitude constantly as the geography changed from desert to mountains. It was really, I wasn't expecting it, were you?
No, it was somewhat of a surprise, but it was interesting to stop at these 2 locations. The first of which, Tunnel Vista Observation Site, was a nice view back down to where we came from at Alamogordo.
And then the Trestle Depot overlook
is the last remnant of a railroad built earlier in the 1900s to take visitors to the mountains to enjoy some of the cooler temperatures there.
On this trip, this was just a drive from one place to the other, but when we got back, we started doing some research because we thought it was such a cool area, and we found that there's a lot more to do and see there. It's actually the birthplace of the famous Smokey Bear.
Yeah, Smokey's story begins in 1950 when a young cub was found after a wildfire in the Lincoln National Forest. He was rescued by firefighters, treated for his burns, and became the living symbol for wildfire prevention. You can even visit the Smokey Bear Historical Park, Capitan, New Mexico, where the bear was found.
You can go hiking and camping, and the forest offers great outdoor activities like skiing at Ski Apache, where you can take a gondola to the top for incredible views in the summertime, or try the zip line, which has a vertical drop of 1,584 feet at an elevation of 11,489 feet, which is pretty high. I was surprised.
It is. Bring sweater.
We didn't know about the zip line until later. I love zip lines, and we didn't get to do it, but it's definitely something to check out if you're in the area. Our next stop was Carlsbad Caverns.
These caverns, discovered by a teenage cowboy named Jim White in 1898, reach a depth of about 1,600 feet, 488 meters, with the big room being the most famous chamber sitting about 750 feet in depth.
You can either hike down the 1.25 mile natural entrance trail or take an elevator directly from the visitor center. It takes several hours to visit, and if you are interested in bats, don't forget to go back at dusk to watch the thousands of Brazilian free-tailed bats fly out at dusk.
We have a full-length video on Carlsbad Caverns, which should be popping up now.
Our next stop was Roswell. After leaving Carlsbad, we planned to go through Roswell, New Mexico. It's just about 80 miles north of Carlsbad.
Well, you really want to stop and investigate this little town in southern New Mexico because this is where the aliens crashed in 1947.
Yeah, it's a quirky town. You can see evidence of aliens as you drive around, and there's a museum that is kind of the main attraction.
Right, the International UFO Museum was a must-stop for us because we are sci-fi enthusiasts.
So what did you think of the museum?
I was fascinated. They had a lot of information, a lot of detail, a lot of data. They have a library where you can go in and do further research.
They had the latest documents that were released, right?
Yeah, the UFO Museum has the recently declassified documents, news clippings, photographs, and some video footage that the Navy released.
I thought a lot of that was really cool when you walked around. They have a lot of videos showing the witnesses talking about it.
Yeah, it made it feel much more personable and real to see witness testimony like that.
It's also a research hub right there. Didn't we see that in the building?
Yeah, it's like a little small library where you can go in and you can borrow their information. They have file after file after file of these documents. You can copy, they have copy equipment there. So it's really set up well.
Don't forget your alien souvenirs. This was good for about an hour or an hour and a half visit. We got back in the car and headed to Santa Fe. On the way to Santa Fe, we ran into this horrendous
rainstorm, which was a complete surprise because as we left Roswell, we knew we still had 200 miles to go, but we're in the middle of this gigantic desert, and suddenly the rain starts coming down harder than we've ever seen. The car wiper system could hardly keep up with the rainfall. It was pounding.
It does rain in the desert, I guess. Fortunately, it cleared up. It was Santa Fe or bust. Before we even made it here to Santa Fe, we had heard so much about it, how unique it is, the art scene, but we didn't really understand why people fall in love with it until we spent a few days there.
Absolutely. We didn't know what to expect, and it's a neat town, high enough to where the temperature is very pleasant, yet it has this old-time Western feel and vibe that is just compelling.
Yeah, I think when we got back, Terry decided that he wanted to move there. So
yeah.
He's been looking at places. One of our first stops in Santa Fe was the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum.
Her work really captures the essence of the New Mexico landscape.
She was a fascinating person, and the museum was really cool. Another great place to visit in Santa Fe is Museum Hill. We visited the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture.
Yeah, it's a really incredible collection. And what I loved about it was that it wasn't just to look back at history, it also celebrated contemporary Native American art.
Then there's Meow Wolf. If you're looking for something completely different, this is it. It's an immersive art experience that combines interactive exhibits with storytelling, and it's unlike anything we'd ever been to before, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the most unexpected highlights of our trip. It feel like you're stepping into a living, breathing work of art, and we could have spent hours there.
And I'd like to go back and walk through the refrigerator a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a
refrigerator that they have, and you open the door, and then it goes into this whole different room. So you feel like you're in this really weird movie, but you're playing in it. So it was a good time, a lot of fun. We highly recommend checking it out. Next on our list were a few day trips from Santa Fe, and the first one is Bandelier National Monument.
Bandelier has both stunning landscapes and ancient cliff dwellings and insights into the daily life of the ancestral Pueblo people.
The drive in here was just incredibly beautiful, too.
It was. As you can see in the video, it was heavily forested and just amazingly pretty.
When you get there, you can hike out to the cliff dwellings.
Yeah, it's about a mile and a half out and back. And the thing it really is going to impress you is that these aren't buildings per se, these are actually caves in the cliffside.
So there's ladders that you can climb up into some of them and see the little area inside where they would have fires or whatever.
They weren't big.
And really just protection.
Yeah.
Not really like houses, but
A way to get out of the weather and a way to stay safe from any marauding other tribes.
when you travel with Terry, he's always got all these facts and information that he shares along the way. So here's one of his tidbits. Didn't you say something about the volcanoes?
Oh, there's 3 super volcanoes on the North American continent. This is one of them. Yellowstone is another. I've forgotten the third.
Long Valley Caldera in California was the third. Bandelier was less than an hour from Santa Fe.
We got the early start, so we still had plenty of day left. So we next decided to move on to Los Alamos.
In Los Alamos, you can visit the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. You can visit the Bradbury Science Museum. There's also some hikes nearby. We chose to visit the Bradbury Science Museum. This is a great museum for anyone interested in atomic history and the Manhattan Project.
And these were the guys that actually invented nuclear anything, which made it all that much more intense and interesting.
And after we did all of that, we were kind of tired. So when we got back, we visited the Ojo Resort and Spa to check out the hot springs.
Yeah, what a pleasant surprise that was. It was the perfect way to unravel and unwind after a day full of adventure.
We wrapped up our time near Santa Fe with a visit to Nambe Falls. It's a real hidden gem. You might not see this on other videos. It was about a half-mile up.
Yeah, half-mile up, half-mile back. The ascent is not bad. The trail is wide enough to where you're comfortable. You don't feel like you're going to fall into a canyon.
And you get a great view of the falls. It's a really pretty thing to do just outside of Santa Fe.
Yeah, it was the perfect way to end our time in the area.
There's so much to see and do in Santa Fe. We do have a video that specifically talks about all of these places and it gives you more info about Santa Fe. Santa Fe is one of the areas where we would have stayed longer.
Yeah, you may need to spend more time than we did. We wish we had about maybe, 2 or 3 more days there?
At least another day or two, for sure. The next stop after Santa Fe was Chaco Culture National Historical Park, located in a very remote area northwest of Santa Fe.
And wherever you see remote, make that in capital letters because it's way, way out in the bulrushes.
It's an ancient cultural center that was once the heart of a major civilization dating back to about 900 AD. The structures and ruins here are incredible.
And they really make you appreciate the advanced knowledge these people had. For example, they were building 4-story buildings over 1,200 years ago.
Yeah, to think of people of that period of time, and this was a cultural center where they came together and built this.
Yeah, consider that really we're talking about hundreds of people that lived there. Everything was built by hand using only what they could carry or their horses could drag.
Chaco was a cool place to visit. We have a full-length video on our experience here, so if you want to learn more about the history and have a deeper dive, check it out. The link is on the screen or in the description. The Bisti Badlands was next on our list, and we drove there after we left Chaco, and the roads to get there were not the best. It was a couple of hours on dirt roads, very remote. There was no cell phone service.
Very rough, very bumpy.
And we're going to have to admit right up front that we put this on our failed list because we didn't do a great job of seeing Bisti. So you can see in the video here how cool the Badlands are. And
Yeah,
Terry, you've been to Badlands before, right?
Yeah, I've been to Badlands, but nothing like this. This is like something Disney would have made. It's just the most amazing variations and rock structures I've ever seen.
And we really wanted to see it, and we did do some research before we went, but we really weren't prepared for, one, how remote it was, Two, the amount of walking that you have to do to actually see the Badlands. And when we arrived, you'll see here in the video, it wasn't the best day. It was windy. It was really windy. The gusts were, it was like 60 mile an
The
hour.
wind was howling. Yeah, it was bad.
There was a bathroom, but other than that, there were no other
Facilities other than a parking spot.
And and we just weren't prepared to do that kind of thing. There's not paths that you walk on, right? You can walk in any direction, and so you really do need a GPS
You do.
if you're going to be out there. Your phone isn't going to necessarily work.
Yeah, most definitely.
So we put this on our fail list. We think that it's well worth going, and if you want to go, we'll look for some resources and put them in the description. And I think this is probably one of the coolest areas in New Mexico. It is very remote. I would plan to do it on a day when you're not doing any other things. And in our case, we were staying in Farmington that night. And instead of going from Chaco over to the Badlands, I think we should have gone up to Farmington
And came back.
and then come back down regular roads,
Yeah.
not dirt roads, to do it the next day. And we needed to have hiking stuff. We needed to have food and water and GPS with us, and we needed to have figured out which direction we were going to take when we got there.
Yeah. So it's on our to do again someday list.
Yeah, sucks for us. If you have been there before, we'd love to hear more about it, and please put some info in the description for other people that are interested as well. If you'd like to continue the adventure, check out some of the other videos on our trip. We hope you learned something about New Mexico and some of the top sights to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting videos for you to take a look at. Hope you enjoy and leave us a comment.
If you think we suck, let us know. Click the thumbs up button. Cheers.
Have a nice day.